This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, there you are. How you doing, my man? Hardcore.
Yeah, you're right. I did stay through the game. I think it was my first time since Tebow played. So I don't even remember what 2010 or something like that. I mean,
I was there. I remember, dude. Every time he practice finished and he was walking off the field, I swear to God, you remember it was like 100 and 150 reporters surrounding his ass.
Yeah,
it was a show.
Oh yeah,
when I saw your tweet. And by the way, you got your Twitter there. You can follow Eric there on Twitter and catch his work there at NFL.com. But I saw your tweet with the lights now shut down and you take a picture of the field. It was a cool picture, by the way.
It was.
But like seeing it, I was like, damn, dude, hardcore. You stayed all the way through. That was strong. I stayed through when I had to do the broadcast, actually.
Right. Yes, exactly. I thought you had mentioned before that you'd done that. Yeah, I mean, if you think that's hardcore, wait till NFL Combine time when you try to call me on the Monday I have Combine Day and I say, hey, I'm still in Indy, so I've been informed we're going to be there like 8 days.
I didn't see you at the Senior Bowl, but I'm going to track you down at the Combine for a drink.
I'm hard to miss. Yeah, so I'll be easily spottable.
Yeah. So we're gonna track you down. I got to treat you to a couple of drinks there. You're always so good.
I appreciate that.
On the show, man. I appreciate you as always. I'm looking forward to a little Combine action, actually. All right, before I get into draft stuff, as you know, the Vic Fangio has taken over, and as you know, new coaches, new scheme, new changes come with it, and some demands. And then on the offensive side, McDaniel wants that tight end that can be a two-way guy. Obviously, Gesicki will be finding another home because he wasn't the kind of guy that he really wants for his offense. On the defensive side, I think some of the things that change, they always needed to upgrade their linebackers as it is, especially that middle linebacker. But in this defense that Fangio is going to put, they need a badass middle linebacker. Yep. And I think Brandon Jones, who was improving his coverage last year, the thing is with Fangio, you have to be exceptional at coverage. Okay, and the other guy's already exceptional at coverage. So I think they might go for a cover safety also. So let's talk about a couple of those positions, including running back, tight end, safety, linebacker. Talk to me. Let's start with safety. Yep. Did you see anything that fits in the Senior Bowl? The Sidney Brown kid from Illinois was kind of interesting, but you tell me.
He was, absolutely. Sidney Brown, I think with each passing day, his brother Chase had a kind of a rough first practice. He's a running back, and his brother Sidney, I think most of the season at Illinois kind of stood in his shadow. A couple of Canadian kids too. I know the CFL at one point was hoping those guys might slip through the cracks. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But yeah, Sidney Brown, I just felt like as the week went on, you started to see the more things you can do with him. I think you could probably play him, over tight ends and backs and have him, cover those players. Not long to the point where you say, oh yeah, I absolutely could see him as against the tight end in every single situation, but he's a little short. He's 5'10" or whatever he is. But he's got a thick build, really well sculpted. I thought, he looked like a little tank as a safety there and moved very well. So yeah, he was one that stood out. Kayvon Merriweather is a good player. I'm trying to think of other guys who, kind of have that look. The kid from Cal by the end of the week, and I'm just blanking on his name right now. I can't believe it, but I thought he really kind of stood up as the week went on and had a couple plays in the game itself, which still matters. I know everyone says the practices are the goods there, but overall this year, I think it's a pretty good safety class. I wouldn't say it's an amazing one, but for the first year in recent memories, I feel like we can maybe go 6, 7, 8 deep at that position and feel like you might get a starting caliber player at that position.
Is there anybody in the draft that kind of fits that mold that Fangio's looking for, the guy that can do it all? Because you've got to be really good cover safety besides run support.
Yeah, somebody who may, you may want to check out is Ronnie Hickman at Ohio State. I think the size it meets what Fangio would look for. kind of the diversity of roles that, the hats he wore at Ohio State, kind of did a number of different things there. Just a really solid all-around player. I don't think has any glaring weaknesses, at least what I've seen so far. I haven't talked to a ton of people about him, but I think about him. Christopher Smith's a little on the undersized side. If you're going really rich at the position, I know they have limited draft picks. Brian Branch at Alabama, I think, could be a terrific safety hybrid player, slot, outside corner if you need him to. But that's probably above where Miami currently sits.
Okay. Linebacker. For me personally, the Dayan Henley kid.
Yeah.
From Washington State. I wasn't fixated on practice as much as normal. Dude, this was the first time I was back in 3 years. So I was kind of catching up with people that I would run into, and I did a lot of talking. But I thought when I would look, that was one of those guys that would flash to me at times. So talk to me, because the linebacker, again, they need a guy in the middle that can run and do all, what Fangio does.
Sure.
So I don't need to tell you.
Yeah, and right. Obviously we, there's still, I guess, hope for Channing Tindall to develop, and he was a player who, obviously could flourish in a different scheme with a little more time. It sounded like maybe terminology caught up to him a little bit, but yeah, I thought Henley was one of the winners of the week, and some of my NFL cohorts like Daniel Jeremiah felt the same, and I was impressed with his energy too. It was just something that kind of stood out to me watching him the first day of practice. He'd be on the sideline, really encouraging his teammates and helping guys get lined up. First of all, it was a credit to him for knowing, where they needed to be and stuff. And that was one of the first things I noticed. And then as the week went on, you could see him really feeling well, being in a position to make a play. I would say meeting the ball is his biggest trait. He takes really good angles to the ball and gets there fast. He's a fascinating player that I probably, there were about 8 or 10 guys that I came out of the week thinking I need to go back and watch him a little bit more. I was aware of him, but I didn't know a whole lot about him, and came away feeling like, he moves pretty well. Coverage is still something I want to see a little bit more of in terms of tape work. But yeah, I would say Henley really caught my eye a little bit, and I've maybe moved him up a little.
Anybody else? Is Henley's the kind of guy that could be there, in the third round, right?
He could. Yeah, he could. I would say top 100 is this is me guessing a little bit.
They've got 2 third rounders.
Right. I think that's kind of in the whether it's the, maybe the Patriots pick or even the Miami's, I think is a little bit after that, their selection. So yeah, I would say with one of those choices, that position would be well represented, and Henley would probably still be a reasonable option there.
And any guy in the draft that you like that kind of fits the mold of the middle linebacker?
Yeah, the Alabama kid who opted out of the Senior Bowl, Henry To'o. I thought, Tennessee transfer, came to Alabama. Nick Saban kind of gave him the red dot right away and sort of had him run the show a little bit. I think there are athletic concerns. Like, I don't think he's as gifted an athlete as Channing Tindall, but I think he might be a better and more refined football player at this point. It's sort of apples to oranges in a little bit, but his instincts are really good. I think better going forward than in coverage, but isn't a lost cause by any means. But he's somebody who in that, second, third round range, I think could intrigue somebody like Fangio.
By the way, Daniel Scott's the kid you were thinking about.
Daniel Scott, thank you. God, I just could not think of his name. Yeah.
Okay, you like him at strong safety.
Yeah, that's kind of what he is. Could he play the post? Maybe, and I think the range is good. He's obviously got a little bit of length to him too. He really showed up and had some instinctive plays in the game itself. He was a little quiet in practice early in the week, or at least I didn't notice him standing out. But another player that I would put on that, kind of be kind, rewind. Like, I need to see a little bit more of him before I stamp any kind of final determination on him.
All right. This one's kind of an odd question. It's running back. And I love the Spears kid I saw from Tulane. I think all of us liked him as the week went on. You thought more of him. But the problem I have is, and this, Chris Greer has a history of they don't invest high picks in running backs.
Yeah.
They don't invest big money in, I've had fans tell me, hey, they should go after Saquon. They're not going to do that, dude.
Right.
They got to re-sign Sealer. They got to re-sign Wilkins, first of all these, and they've got to move some money around. They're not going to go bring in a free agent running back. Their thing has kind of been an under the radar, and I think they're still going to bring Mostert and Wilson back because they kind of were a pretty good duo for them overall. But if they would go for a back, Myles Gaskin was late. What's it called? The kid that's bounced around all over the place in the third round from Alabama. I'm forgetting that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think wasn't he in Arizona now and is getting not Arizona.
Oh, you're thinking of Kenyon Drake?
Kenyon Drake.
Yes.
So the history under Greer has been that they're not gonna. So now, Eric, I need you to kind of focus on something that's, I guess, lesser than third round, best case scenario to later on in the draft, and they only have a couple of more picks. So did you see a guy that you would invest in the Senior Bowl that is going to be in the later to mid-round picks, or give me another name in free agency?
Yeah, good question. I think the good news is that the free agency class looks pretty loaded. So, like you said, it's a position where, maybe a couple of guys tend to get paid, right? I mean, we'll see what happens with Barkley and, Pollard and Josh Jacobs and whatever, but, even Miles Sanders for that matter. But, I mean, you could still kind of go down the list and there's, I don't know, almost like a dozen guys who maybe they're not standalone starters, but how many teams have those anymore? Right? Not many. I mean, they're usually shared positions. So there are at least half a dozen free agents. So I think, can offer some kind of value there. So some of them will slip through the cracks. And I think that kind of also applies to the draft too, as we sit here, 2+ months away from draft day. Bijan will probably go in round 1. Jahmyr Gibbs will probably be a top 40 pick. The A&M kid will really run well, I think, and go high, maybe in that James Cook kind of second round range. But, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Kendre Miller from TCU was banged up, didn't play in the national title game, but he's kind of a bigger back with some interesting feet. Roshan Johnson, who was down at the Senior Bowl too. Bijan Robinson's backup at Texas, who offers a ton of special teams value. I think he's going to be really good in that respect. Has some size. I mean, he's a good, thickly built kid who I think who's got some nice feet and vision as well. Runs hard, runs downhill. I'm a big fan of his and think he could be exploited well in more of a feature role than he saw in college, where, if he was lucky, he got a dozen carries in a game, more likely, 7 to 10 or something like that. So, yeah, it really is a fascinating class. You mentioned Spears, Kenny McIntosh. I didn't think had the greatest week down there, at least coming in with expectations like he did. But, he and Eric Gray are both good Senior Bowl running backs, so I think could be available on day 3, or, at least Gray might be. There's some options. I really think if you include the underclassmen, Zach Charbonnet, Sean Tucker from Syracuse, Tank Bigsby I like from Auburn. I mean, they're Izzy Abakanda from Pittsburgh, I think, is getting slept on a little bit as kind of a thickly built guy. So, this is a pretty good running back class this year, and it was a good group in Mobile.
It's so devalued. It's the most interchangeable position in all of pro sports. Like, mama, don't let your babies grow up to be running backs, bro.
I know. Else. It's cycling back in, though. I do feel like we're trending in the right direction for the run game appreciators out there. But you're right. It's still one of those positions where if you get more than one payday, good for you. I mean, that's right. That's hard to do.
Yeah, if you're a 2 contract guy, you are super blessed.
Yep,
that's it. Super blessed if you're a 2 contract guy. And very few, because I've had GMs that tell me, I'd rather go in the middle late rounds.
Yeah,
I'll keep them for 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And then I can move on and get the next guy and the next guy, and I could just keep it more interchangeable than me having to tie a lot of money to a position that takes a lot of pounding.
Yeah.
And so that's, and I can understand that.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Look how the Ravens and Patriots and other teams have done it, where they've drafted backs in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round range, used them well, let them go in free agency. They get the comp pick on the back end. I mean, it's like it's almost a free investment in some respects. So yeah, I think a lot of teams will take that approach.
All right, now let's get to the most unrealistic position sometimes with folks out there, because I always get into it with my man Omar Kelly all the time, because he's like, well, no, Gesicki doesn't block, and I'm like, okay, well, 85% of the damn tight ends in the NFL can't block.
It's true.
And usually most of the great pass catchers aren't really blockers, bro. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And I know that that's kind of been the knock here for the last year with McDaniel, and even with Flo. He didn't even use Gesicki as much either, because he wanted a little more two-way out of his guy too. But the reality is, I didn't see anybody. At least I don't think I saw anybody in the Senior Bowl that I looked at a tight end and said, wow, great pass catcher, great blocker. Yeah, they grow on trees. No, they don't. So walk us through here. I can't give you a name I saw in the Senior Bowl. If you did see one, please tell me. But what guy or two, or is there even three in the draft that you would say this fits what Mike McDaniel and Shanahan and these kind of cats want, a full two-way tight end? Who's that?
Yeah. I'll disagree slightly with you, but I get the sentiment of what you're saying, and I think you're at least on the right track. There may not be Luke Musgrave came into the week with a lot of hype. The Oregon State kid who only played 2 games last year. He's not going to end up in Miami. He's going to go too high, most likely, and he's too much like Gesicki. I think there will be a team out there that says we could use that. There's some downfield ability, some jump ball ability. I see a little Dallas Goedert in him. Maybe not quite as smooth, a little clunkier at times, but boy, I mean, he can really stretch out and get the ball. If there's somebody who fits the mold of what you didn't see down there that I saw, Payne Durham, by the end of the week, the Purdue kid, I thought was starting to look spectacular. Early in the week, didn't notice him as much. Felt like he was kind of getting his sea legs underneath him a little bit. He's a pretty big kid. I mean, he's played in the 260-pound range. But boy, watching him move and kind of contort his body and adjust to off-target throws a few times, Thursday's practice especially, and then early in the game as well. I mean, he made a couple, or I guess maybe the one catch was in the second half, but that's a player that I'm fascinated to kind of drill down on a little bit more, because didn't play football until his senior year of high school. Call him a late bloomer if you want to. I think that's fair. They did have a pretty good quarterback situation there, as Aiden O'Connell had a nice year for Purdue, nice couple years, I guess. So he's one that may fit that role. And
you like his blocking
during and competitive as a blocker. I think there's some work to be done. I didn't mean to step on you there, but
no, you're good.
Yeah, he's got the frame and the temperament, I think, to be effective. We saw George Kittle, for instance, if you want to use a Shanahan tree tight end in college, as a guy who gave this wild effort as a blocker, and sometimes it was terrific and sometimes it was less than terrific, and he was hurt a lot too, so it's hard to really make a judgment. I'm not saying he's going to turn into George Kittle, but I at least see some role similarities to what the two of them did. Payne Durham doesn't have the yak ability of Kittle, but in terms of how they employ him as a blocker and then also as a receiver, there's at least some overlap there, I think.
Yeah, okay, but that's my point. Like, there's only a few of those in the NFL. Like every team doesn't have one. There's like 5, 6, 7 guys maybe in the NFL that can legitimately, you can say, oh, this guy's a hell of a pass catcher and a hell of a blocker. That's really tough. So is there somebody in the draft? And here's where I think that 1 second rounder or those 2 third rounders, I'm almost pretty sure they're going, if there's one. That's the thing. I haven't really delved too much into the draft yet.
Right.
Is there a guy that is going to go in that area that you say, Eric, this is a guy that can definitely become a two-way guy that Mike McDaniel will love to use?
Here's how I view the tight end position right now. We mentioned Musgrave. He could be a first-round pick, so that's obviously out of the picture. The only two I would say high round dual threat guys, blockers, receivers are Michael Mayer, Notre Dame, and probably Darnell Washington, Georgia, both also probably going to be out of the picture for that. I think Dalton Kincaid will probably rise to that level. He's more receiver than blocker at this point. So those 4, I think, are off the board. Could we see Tucker Kraft, a kid from South Dakota State, possibly enter that range? Maybe. Luke Schoonmaker, I like him more than other people. The Michigan kid, he was out at the East-West Shrine game. I don't think he finished the week. I don't know if he had an injury or something. I have to check on that, but I don't think he played in the game. If he did, I didn't see him, to be totally honest. But he's one I really like. And the more I've watched him, the more I appreciate him as a potential dual threat guy. He's got enough length. He could put on a little weight too and strength. And I think it'd get better at blocking, but good player. He would maybe be a little bit lower than that. Sam Laporta has some receiving chops. They stress the blocking aspect there too. A kid at Iowa. Daniel Jeremiah mentioned Davis Allen at Clemson. I thought he was really quiet at the Senior Bowl, but somebody who I think NFL scouts have some intrigue with. And like you pointed out, it's a really tough position. It's a slow developing position in the NFL. If you're expecting immediate returns, I think you might be disappointed more often than not. It's just one of those spots where you often pick up a player who was let's say day 2 pick or something like that, didn't work out in his first spot, ends up in free agency and finds a role a little bit, almost like Tyler Conklin with Minnesota a couple years ago, or, people like that, where you say it's just kind of a slow boil to get where they're at. And that's why, even with a good class this year, I don't know that there are more than a handful of immediate contributors.
And by the way, I think Gesicki's going to have a phenomenal career.
I do too. Yeah.
When he'll find a place now that will use him like a receiver, like what he is. And if you use him in that way, I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever he goes next, I think for the fantasy players out there, I think he's going to be one of the better fantasy tight ends next year.
He could have a 10 touchdown season. Wouldn't shock me. I mean, he's already had a couple, big ones. So
yeah, I'm with you there. One more thing before I let you go. Tyndall, what did you think of him? Because obviously he didn't play he didn't play much at all this year, but
right.
And I know fans are disappointed. I'm not one of those guys. I don't like quitting on guys early on, especially when they're good dudes and they work hard and all that. If the guy's a clown and he's, whatever, then you can't count on his maturity to be a professional, then that's always going to be an issue. But this kid looks like a good kid, a hard worker. What did you like about him? And how do you think he fits now with what Fangio's going to do?
Yeah, I mean, he's played extensively on special teams from what I saw, or at least, on multiple units there. We heard the talk that maybe the either the scheme or the terminology and just maybe the speed of things kind of held him back a little bit. And obviously, as you alluded to, I mean, entering his senior season at Georgia, he was considered kind of a fringe, maybe draftable player, but really didn't emerge till his final year. And, even then it was without the benefit of starting. I mean, he was in probably the most talented linebacker room in the country, or, them in Ohio State in 2021. So it was a projection to begin with, but it was based on very, very promising athletic traits. And like you said, passed a lot of the character tests. People felt like this is a kid you can win with. He's selfless and he's going to do whatever it takes. He's got some passion on the football field. I mean, his pursuit ability, his motor was really strong. But yeah, you could also see some of the holes in his game and why it took him a little longer to develop. So I think once he starts kind of, reacting and not thinking and all that, that's going to be big. But we know a scheme change is coming. So does that hold him back? I don't know. Vic, obviously, I'm here in Chicago. And when he arrived, he was such a big part of what Matt Nagy needed right away. They had a talented defense, but Vic really kind of brought it all together and made it a unit that in some ways carried that team this first year into the playoffs. They had obviously guys like Roquan Smith go right from college, right from Georgia, in fact, step right in and be a rookie contributor. But he also had a veteran next to him in Danny Trevathan. I believe it was Trevathan that year, who really made a difference. So it's possible that Vic either dips into a veteran option that he's had before to kind of be the the surrogate, if you will, the chaperone for a young linebacker like that. They could draft one, as we talked about, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's a guy closer to the end of his career than the beginning who ends up being maybe the cheaper veteran addition because of his smarts and because of his 2-down run stopping ability or whatever. And that wouldn't shock me if they end up appeasing Vic with that type of player.
By the way, Hunter Long, a waste now, right?
I liked him coming out too. He made some wild catches.
But wait a minute. In this offense, because remember they drafted him in the Flores era because I think he's a Flores guy actually.
Yeah,
and then McDaniel takes over. It's not the kid's fault. I'm not saying it's a waste for them now because again, dude, when you switch schemes, it doesn't mean the player is bad. It just means he's a bad fit here. It doesn't mean he can't fit somewhere else.
Yep.
So what's Hunter Long's future, dude?
Yeah, I think tight end and offensive line are tricky. Running back, I guess, could too be, depending on the scheme, right? Like you say, he's just not made for what we do. He's good, it's like you said with Gesicki too. I mean, could he make the team as a third tight end or something and provide some depth and contribute a little on special teams? I suppose so. But yeah, maybe that's the kind of player who gets moved during the draft, during day 2 of the draft, maybe during training camp, preseason, that era. I mean, that's the kind of player that I think some other GMs will be kind of sniffing around and saying, we liked him coming out. Doesn't seem like a fit in Miami. Maybe we can pry him loose.
What's the next concert?
Good question. Boy, that is I don't know that I have anything on the books. Is that sad? Am I getting old? Is this what old feels like? I don't know, but yeah, I got 2 kids at a birthday coming up in the combine. So I've got my February and March are all of a sudden slammed. So I'll have to figure that one out. I tried to see some music in Mobile. There wasn't anything scheduled.
No, there was nothing, bro.
Nothing.
Every stinking year I go there, and I've been going for over 20 years.
I know.
I think it's been twice and once was Billy Idol, and I had to drive to New Orleans to the House of Blues.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-hour drive.
Right.
So I said, all right, what the hell? And rarely, you're hoping there's something in Pensacola. Oh, I did. I saw Steve Harris's band in Pensacola. That was the other one, which was cool. Yeah. Cool.
I mean, when you get anything nearby, you feel blessed. I was just shocked that they didn't have any bands. You'd think during Senior Bowl week at night, they'd, somebody would be coming through. But my best Mobile show, I think, was the Drive-By Truckers at that little dive bar there in the middle of like on Dolphin Street or whatever downtown.
The Garage?
Not the Garage. I can almost come up with the name of it, but dingy little club. They have about maybe 2 shows a week or something. I don't see a lot on their schedule, but I'll have to think of the name and get back to you. It's like the guy I was trying to think of earlier. Just couldn't. Cal Safety. I couldn't come up with it.
By the way, I got tickets for Metallica in Quebec.
Oh, in Quebec. All right, man. I love it.
Well,
yeah.
Metallica's got that tour of 2 nights, no repeats.
Yes. And where they were inspired by? Hey, go look up at the Metallica Fish video. They're commenting on this would have been back in like 2017. Fish played a residency at MSG, played 13 shows in like a 15-day span, and they didn't repeat a single song throughout the tour. And Lars and those guys are reading about it, and there's a video, and they're going, how do you even do that, right? And now, obviously, I think they're trying their best to do the Metallica version of it, which I love. I think it's great.
I was here at the concert here where they did the 83, 84 albums only. So it was awesome. And Ride the Lightning is my favorite album anyway. My favorite.
Yeah,
that's the second album, and so it was Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning, and it was just free because it was in honor of the record owners. I forgot their names. Where they originally started with them. So it was one of those concerts, and then they started doing this, and so one night, Pantera and Mammoth are opening up, and then the other night is Five Finger Death Punch and Ice Nine Kills opening up. So you get the 2 sets. 2 different songs, and then you get the opening acts. So that's gonna be cool. By the way, I bought the same tickets for Mexico City in September of 2024.
Oh, beautiful. You are
Yeah,
set
Greta,
up, man. I think you're in.
Greta's opening up for that one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Greta and Mammoth. I'm a big Greta fan. So
I
do you like
I
Greta?
think you'll be treated well, man. I think that's going to be a tasty evening right there.
Dude, I've been dying to go to a metal concert in Central or South America because every time I see them on YouTube, it's like the passion in those concerts
my
are
gosh.
just, yeah.
Rush in Rio is, I know it's not metal, right? But if you go watch the Rush in Rio video, like those people are going crazy for 2.5, 3 hours. Unreal.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's pretty awesome. All right, follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Catch his work there at NFL Network. Eric, as always, very generous with your time. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you immensely.
All right, have a great day, man. See ya.
I'll see you at the Combine, bro. There you go. All right, looking forward to the Combine and seeing Eric there. Good stuff. As always, we like Eric. And he was at Yahoo, and now he's at NFL Network. So there you go.